Step number 3, investing, involves the mixing and pouring of the mold in preparation for casting. It's probably one of the most complex steps that you do here, and you need to understand the procedure from step to step. That's why you have the handouts to refer to, and that is why you've studied. And in order for you to invest, you must follow the following steps, as I'm going to illustrate to you now. I have my projects ready to go, I have my casting sheet filled in, and you need to come to the office and acquire a rubber base. Now, the size of the rubber base will be determined by the amount of projects that you have. And in this situation we have 2. We're probably going to be able to locate both of these in here. If you had joined up with 3 or 4 people, we might consider a larger one. And from there you're going to probably go get yourself the corresponding flask, and that flask is a steel ring of pipe here, and that fits nice and snugly inside. Now remember, you need a half an hour to complete this task from start to finish. I've got my heat tool. The first step of this is to grab your rubber flask and heat the center of it to melt the wax in there. And this is where I'm going to attach my projects. What I do is heat that and then carefully place that in the center, go around the base. And this other one will come on the side like that. Okay. Look, I want to melt around the outside of my sprue and weld them in place. I'm going to grab a bit of sticky wax here. Just a tiny little bit. And I'm going to fill in the spaces. So when I do this, it makes it a pretty solid attachment to the base. And that's important because what we want to make sure is that they don't come loose during the casting process. There we go. The next thing I need to do is you're going to come and see me, and I will inspect your rubber base. I will come up with this debubbler. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly spray the surfaces. And what that does is it prevents air bubbles from attaching to your project. Now this will dry slowly, and once it does, I'm going to carefully grab my steel flask and attach it inside the rubber. I just pull it across, and then as the rim of the flask allows it to enter, then I'm going to slide it down. I want to make sure that I'm careful not to hit any of the projects that are inside. Good. And if I look down, there's several things that I'm looking for. Making sure that my projects do not touch each other, because the problem with that is they will stick together and be one solid piece of metal. Secondly, there should be a space around the outside ridge where the projects are not close to. So we need some clearance, and about 1/4 inch around the outside is good enough. Secondly, we need to also make sure that our projects do not extend close up to the top. If they do, it'll create a problem for us. We need at least 1/4 inch and up to 3/8 of an inch clearance between the top of the project and the top of the flask. Now, assuming that everything's fine from this point, we can continue on. Here's the area where we invest in our shop. There's a couple items on the table here that you need to familiarize yourself with. Here is the digital scale that we use to weigh out our stuff. On the other side here, I've got my paperwork and my flask.
I've got a jug of investment. I've got a rubber bowl, my jug of water.
Now before we begin here, I need to grab some of this special tape here. I need to pull off on the smaller ones about 6 inches. And I want to take my flask and about 1/4 inch down, wrap it around.
I'm going to now write my name on the tape and the amount of metal needed for casting. Now a reminder, you need at least 30 minutes to complete this. So the first thing I need to do, grab my rubber bowl. I usually squish it, and all the dried investment, if there's any remaining, breaks free, and you can just dump that in the garbage. Place the rubber bowl on the scale and turn the scale on. The scale will automatically zero. Now, written on the jug is the amount of both materials that you need to measure out. You need to figure out which size flask you have. This is a 2-inch flask, so we need 90 grams of water and 180 grams of investment. So I'm going to grab the jug and measure out 90 grams. You want to be close, within a couple grams, hopefully. Maybe 96, that's close enough. So that's 90 grams and 96 grams. From here, I'm going to reset it to 0. Now, before we add the powder, a reminder, you have about 3 or 4 minutes of working time before the mixture starts to harden. So you have to really hurry up.
No, so now I'm ready to mix in the investment powder. So the scale reads 0, and I need 180 grams of this. So that's probably about 2 scoops.
Here we go, 180, a little bit extra. Put the lid back on the can because we don't want to introduce any water into the jug. It'll ruin the remaining investment. Now take 2 fingers and mix them up. You want to make sure that it's a nice, consistent, lump-free mixture. That's pretty good. I like to grab some paper towels, just clean off my fingers. Now, the next thing you need to do is grab the cup that's here and gently pour the mixture into the cup.
Now, the next step is to go over to the vacuum and begin vacuuming.
You need to raise the cover, place this in the center, and put the cover back on there. And then on the bottom here, you'll notice there's a switch, on-off switch, and you flick that, you'll notice the gauge goes all the way over. By the way, I have a timer here, and we're going to time the first part for about 1 minute and 30 seconds. So we have the air being sucked out, and if we don't do a good job of that, these become metal balls on the surface of your wax model or your project. It will damage your design, and it'll make it impossible to finish your ring properly. You can see the gauge is all the way over here. That's an indication that it's working. Timer's gone off. It's been 1 minute and 30 seconds. I'm going to stop the machine. I flick the switch on the bottom, and to release the pressure on this one, you just push that lever. Now, I'm able to lift up my piece, and what I want to do is carefully pour at an angle the mixture. And you want to pour it in just so that it's slightly above the metal rim. Okay, and then replace it back in the machine.
Back in the machine, ready to go. And I'll set my timer for another minute.
There, my minute is up now, so I can shut the machine off, release it, remove my flask, which has been vacuumed, and proceed to the next steps. You're almost done now, just a couple more things to do. Now I place my flask, which you can see is still a liquid, and the paperwork over by my workbench, and for here for the next 20 minutes or so we're going to let it sit, and we're going to make sure nothing touches it. What we want to do is let it harden up, and then what we're going to do is scrape the top and label it, clean up the investing area, pour all the used investment into the pail that's there, and a reminder, do not pour any of this investment down the sinks, and make sure the scale comes back to the office. The hardness of your investment by touching the top. This has been sitting here for a good 20 minutes. And now what I need to do is scrape the top. So I'll pull the tape off, grab a scraper, and into the garbage can, scrape the extra investment. And it's going to allow me to write on it. And I'm going to copy the information from the sheet directly to the top. Use pencil only.
And when it's completed, as you can see, it's handed in, and the next day, the following step of burnout and casting will take place.